welcome to IC Show TV. This is Paul Milligan at IC 2019. Thanks for joining us for the latest in our series of panel discussions here on the InAVate booth. Today's looking at the world of software, really, and the question has been posed a few times in the magazine, and what we're seeing kind of wider in industry is an industry that was probably built on selling black boxes and very profitably for a lot of people. Are we now moving to a kind of software world? So do we see a future where the AV world's moving from hardware providers to software designers? I'm joined today by, at the end there, is Simon Cooper from integrators AVI SPL. Next to him is Martin Barbour from QSC. So we've got a nice manufacturer today. We don't have many of those in the panel, so that's good. Next to him is Nevil Bounds from integrators Feltech. And finally, next to me is Bernd Schindler from integrators IB Schindler. So welcome, gentlemen. Thanks for coming. So the question, is the AV world moving from hardware providers to software designers? Simon, I'll pick on you first. Do we see a future where that could happen?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've seen it in other industries in the past. In the voice world, there was traditionally all hardware providers in the voice world, and they've moved over to voice over IP, and they're all software-based businesses now. And I think we're already seeing in the AV industry a lot of software-based platforms coming to market, cloud-based control systems, that type of thing. So I think as integrators, we're already trying to ride that wave, as it were, and stay ahead with these software platforms. And I think the whole industry will be heading that way.
Sure. Martin, obviously you guys are interesting because of the COTS programs and stuff. You seem to be kind of moving that way. Is that kind of fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, we're really at the culmination that a strategy that's been many years in the making. I think it's important to understand that certainly within the AV industry, I think there's really two fundamental elements. We're always going to require AV-based hardware endpoints. The ability to ingest content of different sources into the product, into the system is very important. So we'll always have those critical hardware devices as part of the solution. But I think when we come to the number crunching or the processing elements, at that point I think it becomes pretty self-evident, as you just described, that the other adjacent industries, IT in particular, telecoms, have illustrated that really the most beneficial way forward, profitable, easy to maintain, and also further give us the ability to do more is to move into software-based processing, because it's just far easier to develop and iterate over time.
Sure. I mean, Neville, even though you only look at over 21, you've been around the AV industry for a while, and probably in call it the golden era, I suppose, of kind of hardware and boxes and things. Are we seeing a change, do you think? Is it kind of happening now, or has it been happening for a while?
Yeah, it has been happening for a while. Yes, this is my 40th year in the AV industry, and it could not be more different from when I joined. The difference is now we're needing to employ different people with different skill sets. So what I would call regular AV programming, that's kind of not the sort of people we're looking for these days. We're looking for younger people, probably, people that are out of university, people that have got maybe good gaming backgrounds, good code writing skills in sort of the C# kind of areas, and I think this is in order to iterate and to make the sort of interface and changes that clients want. The traditional AV programming model kind of doesn't work anymore. Sure.
I mean, in your discussions with manufacturers, which I guess happens a lot, especially somewhere like here, are they, in your mind, are they aware of that kind of shift that's happening?
Oh, very much so, yeah. And I think actually most of them are ahead of the game. I think probably some of the integrators, and I include Feltech in that, probably we're slightly behind where we need to be at the moment. But certainly with the leads from the manufacturers coming, that is the direction that they are going, and we need to be in that place.
Sure. But are you seeing a shift right now, or do you think it's been happening for a while?
Definitely, because when I started in our industry, that was about 17 years ago. We've been talking to people like facility departments or AV departments, and they wanted to buy hardware, they wanted to buy boxes, that was what they knew. Now, I think 90 or 95% of our projects as a consultant are with IT departments, and those people don't even understand why you need a box to do stuff like IP processing. They ask, why do I need to buy that black box with a poor power supply without redundancy if I could put the whole algorithm into our virtual environment and make it better, faster, cheaper, more highly available, all this stuff. They just don't understand it. And I personally don't understand why we don't see more of those kind of software solutions here on the show. I think 1/3 or maybe half of the products we see here could be somehow been implemented as software already.
Sure. So, I mean, do you think there's been a slowness to that process then, or do you think maybe that's manufacturers protecting traditional assets, i.e. hardware?
I think I wouldn't blame the manufacturers, because I think they evaluate the market and see that what I see in my eyes, there are not so many people out there with the integrators that could do it. Yeah. The most of the traditional AV integrators aren't able to do software-based, highly IT integrated solutions today.
Well,
they have to move on. I totally agree with you.
It's a very good point.
Different people.
It's a very good point. You know, a lot of integrators now are just getting into the software-based world, and you know, hardware is their heritage. Hardware is where they've been. Hardware is where they are today. So it's going to take a little bit of time for the wider industry to sort of catch up with itself, and then start pushing the manufacturers. The manufacturers will lead so far, but you know, it's going to take AV integrators like ourselves here, working with our own clients, to start to push that software agenda, if you like, onto the manufacturers and make them accelerate it even more.
Yeah, so coming from a manufacturer's perspective, you know, we at QSC have been on this software trajectory for the last decade. And the QSys platform specifically is fully software-based. We have hardware-based AV endpoints, but the heart of the system really is a software-based OS. And so this is a really exciting time for us and our partners to be able to look at different business models, how to help change the AV industry, to recognize that there is a huge opportunity and profit to be made from software and services. And following in the footsteps where IT and telecoms have gone before us illustrates very clearly that is a much more sustainable business model moving forward. And so you're seeing those other companies do the same, and I think that, frankly, to stay relevant, I think that's probably where the industry needs to go.
Sure. And an issue that Nevil touched on earlier on, I just wanted to ask each of you, start with Simon, maybe are you getting more software people into your organisation? How are you getting those skills in? Are you recruiting them? Are you giving training to people who are already there? How do you? Are you getting more of those?
It's a bit of both. So we are recruiting people with more software skills. We are fortunate. We have our own R&D department. We have our own developers, you know, that are working on our own platforms to integrate with other software platforms. So, and we've had that for a few years now. So we've been slightly different to many others, but you know, to take the points made earlier, we are having to start recruit more people with those pure software skills that traditionally we wouldn't have maybe needed, and there's much abundance, but we do absolutely need them going forward.
I think that's really exciting. If you think about, you know, the size of our industry and the fact that most of our industry, I think I saw some statistics, most of our industry are in the 45 to 55-year-old category today. You know, in order for us to attract new talent, we need to be adopting technologies that are mainstream, as you say, in the gaming world, etc. And this opens up an opportunity for us to bring in a whole new, fresh breath of engineering talent into our industry. But in order to do so, we need to be more computer and IT focused rather than bespoke AV as we have been for so many years.
Nevil, do you talk about, I thought it was really interesting, you said things like gaming industry. So do you face a battle to get those people because it's maybe not as sexy or as well paid? Maybe, I don't, you know, are there the difficulties in recruiting from outside of the AV bubble?
There are challenges there, but I think we need to make sure that we don't, and I'm not trying to sound too unprofessional when I say this, but we don't want people necessarily with the traditional AV baggage, because I think in order to try and make the whole thing a bit more dynamic, offer new solutions, we need to be recruiting from a different pool of people. Now, those people don't necessarily need AV skills per se, and they can be taught if required, but it's the programming, it's the interface, it's the modularity of it, and that is going to come from a different pool of people than we've been used to, that's for sure.
I mean, I always give Crestron as an example of, you know, someone who's made, you know, a lot of money out of hardware, but actually is the clever bit of what they do software, really. And could we see Crestron become a software company? Randy Klein says no, but I not disagree with him. I think there's a lot of value in what Crestron do in the sort of software side of things. We've seen it with iPads and things, the clever bit of an iPad is the software. The hardware is just a nice touchscreen, okay, but touchscreens very available. There's probably not a huge amount of difference between touchscreen A and touchscreen B, so is the software the clever bit for that, and is that where the value is?
I think so, but I think manufacturers don't trust themselves and the market and the integrators to decouple it. Yeah. It's their IP is in a piece of software. It's an DSP algorithm. It's the operating system of a touch panel and the development environment behind it.
Yeah.
And if you sell it as a box, you sell a box. This cannot be copied. This has not to be licensed in any way. It's just a box.
Yeah.
And going for software alone with licensing model and all that, it's a completely different business model.
Yeah.
And I don't think that
Too big a change right now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. When I was asking some manufacturers, why don't you do it yet? There's a manufacturer where I have seen software solutions 2 or 3 years ago in the lab that you today still can only buy as hardware. And I asked him, why aren't you even showcasing this maybe even as a glimpse into the future? Because the sales channel doesn't understand it, because the market doesn't understand it. We could do it any day, but it's the industry isn't ready.
Sure.
And that touches on, sorry to interrupt, but that touches on a really important point that, in order for this to be successful, manufacturers need to engage with the entire channel and help them understand how everybody can be a part of this change. And when you look at the ability to run software in a virtual machine or virtualized signal processing, technology is there, but finding a business model that works for the existing sales channel is difficult. Yeah. But it's we're working on it. We're in many parts we're ahead of the curve, but it's for the broader industry. It's a big challenge.
Nevil, do you see an outcome in 10 years' time where a Kramer or an Extron or a Crestron is a software company?
That's a really interesting outlook, isn't it? I don't know, but all I do know, the AV industry tries very hard, and integrators try very hard, not to have single points of failure in systems, and in hardware, that's exactly what we have in some cases, because I was looking at our service department back at the base the other day, and we've got racks and racks of things that have failed power supplies, burnt out microprocessors or boards or whatever, so this is an area where it is inherently difficult and could cause a problem. Now, obviously, there you can get redundant power supplies and this kind of thing. But actually, if we move to the software model, whilst you need some hardware to connect all that together sometimes, that's going to be the way forward. Whether those manufacturers, those big ones that you've mentioned, have the appetite for that, I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the interesting thing to watch. Gentlemen, many thanks for joining us. It's been a great discussion. And keep tuned to the InAVate website. We're loading a lot more panel discussions from IC 2019. Thanks for joining us for this one. Bye-bye.